Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. This is Ari Koinuma. For today's episode of Why This Song Hits Us So Deep, I wanted to walk through with you one of my all-time favorite songs by one of my all-time favorite acts, King's X, Dogman. If you're watching this, I'm guessing that you already know, but King's X is a legendary hard rock band who's been around since the early 90s. And they frequently come up very high or perhaps top the lists of like unsung bands or underrated bands, or bands should have gotten bigger kind of lists, and rightfully so. They feature just stupendous musicianship and thoughtful songwriting and very unique sound. Now, even among their long and just amazing catalog, Dogman is considered one of their signature tunes. Now, this song came out as the opening number of the album of the same name. But when it came out, it was kind of an opening of a new era for the band. The first 4 albums in this band's career had a very similar sound, a very unique sound that still stands up the test of time to this day. But with Dogman, the band shifted their sound and actually had a new producer, Brendan O'Brien, who rose to fame producing likes of Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and AC/DC and Bruce Springsteen and all these big names. But in one of the earlier producing gigs, he actually went up to the record company and said, I want to produce King's X. And he got his wish. And it is a very different sound from what came before, in that before the King's X had sort of a sense of mystery and psychedelicness, if that's a word, and even some playfulness in their earlier albums, while still being heavy and hard-hitting. But this one is more sort of a lean and mean and really has none of that excess. It just really just hits hard. And this song is very much representative of that particular approach to this record. The psychedelic part comes back in the later albums later, but this one with Brendan at helm, they just really focused on one of the things that they do really best, which is to just pound and be heavy and create a heavy groove and just hit you over the head, that sort of thing. So I'm going to play bits and pieces of the song and sort of stop and then explain what I'm hearing, so that if you're a musician, you can get new appreciation of what the band is doing. If you're a music fan, I'm sure that there'll be some things I point out that you never really recognized before. And hopefully it will help you appreciate this song even more. Okay? So let's go.
Give me $1 or give me 50 cents. Let me take it back if that ain't what I meant.
That is an amazing intro, isn't it? There's actually no intro, right? I mean, the band hits wham and then just kicks into the song, and that opening chord is so heavy, so articulate. It just like a gut punch right there. But I would say one of the themes that I'm going to talk about in this video is that the band knows how to create a contrast and a drama by having sort of light and shade, heavy and light, that sort of thing. Notice how the band hits it, right? The opening chord, and then the guitar and bass drop off and it's just vocal and drums. I mean, that is a drastic, vast difference in terms of how thick and thin the arrangement gets in just a matter of like 5 seconds, right? So the reason why it sounds so heavy, it feels so heavy, is because the band knows to sort of open up the space, let there be some breathing room, and then boom, kind of come back to you with the punch.
Give me a coat or give me a bite. Give me a light bulb and make sure it's bright. Some powder to spray up in the air, up in the air.
Okay, so the verse has the classic hard rock call and response pattern where the guitar riff is responding to, or the vocal and the guitar is kind of playing the call and response, which is a really classic songwriting pattern. Let me play a little bit of that main guitar riff for you. So the reason why that sounds so heavy, in addition to heavy guitar tone, which I can't quite match, but is this note. Right, so that is actually what we call blue note in the blues scale. Metallica's Ento Sandman uses the same note in their riff. It's one of the sort of the signature sound of heavy metal, hard rock, if you want to make things gnarly and heavy kind of note. But it actually has roots in blues. And here's the other one that's interesting. This one, that's what we call a Hendrix chord, because Jimi Hendrix used it in some of his signature tunes. So we're going back history here. It goes as heavy as it is. It has roots in Hendrix and blues. This guitar riff. Okay, so one more thing I want to point out about that riff is about the rhythm. If I were to sort of tap along, it goes like this: ta 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 ta. So there were two places in which there's anticipation going on, meaning that the rhythm came, or the note came earlier than you anticipated, or what you were expecting based on what you heard before. It goes ta 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 ta, right? So that's the one. Ta 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 ta, right? So when the rhythm comes before you expect it, it kind of has a sense of urgency to it. It's not a particularly fast song in terms of the actual tempo, but because of that anticipation built in the riff, you just feel the forward momentum. It just kind of has a really jerky, like woof kind of feeling, which adds to the intensity of the song. Melodically speaking, that verse isn't the most melodic. In fact, Doug seems to be just yelling the words off the top of his lungs, but there is definitely a rhythmic motif in that. He's singing ta 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 ta, right? And really, even the notes aren't that interesting. Rhythm is a very important part of music, and when there's a distinct pattern like that, it totally stands out on its own as a vocal melody. The other thing about untuneful melody, or what I call untuneful melody, which means that if you play that melody on an instrument without words, it's not that interesting. But in this case, untuneful melody helps you focus on the words. And then later, when the song moves on to the chorus has a more melodic part, and that creates a nice contrast in terms of the melody. And it's kind of a classic songwriting technique that you start the tune with untuneful verse, but then bring the memorable melodies to the chorus, and creates the contrast between untuneful melodies in the verse to chorus. Okay, moving on to the chorus.
Let me take my thoughts away to think about another day, remembering the times I prayed to help me do with me, to be the Dogman. Give me some.
So notice how the chorus at the end, also there is a space there, isn't there? So the band really lays back and let Doug deliver the punchline, right? And again, and then the riff comes back in. There's a contrast between quiet and loud, right? The heavy and not so heavy. The verse has that, the chorus has that. That space is very important before you come back with heavy hitting riff. And this is something that I think gets lost with a lot of metal bands, is that it's not that they're the constant pounding is what makes them heavy. If you create a contrast to the heavy part from the light part, that's what makes them feel heavy. And man, this song is a master example of that. Okay, I'm skipping a little ahead to the bridge part. Here it goes.
To be the dogman. To be the dogman. To be the dogman. To be the dogman.
A nice, interesting guitar touch there in that Ty is doing sort of this alternating sort of strumming pattern. Here, let me play on the guitar a little bit. That's what he's playing, but he's alternating the sort of the the heavy part, so in the left and right channel, so that the two sides complement each other, which he can't do live, but on the recording, it's a really nice sort of a texture, right? It makes the song really interesting. So that bridge part is one long build, right? And the vocal harmonies are there because the melody itself is very static. So when the melody is static, of course you focus on the words, but the other ways to make the music interesting is to play with the arrangement. So you stack up the vocal harmonies, and if you notice, if you listen with headphones, it will be very obvious to you. Brendan O'Brien mixed it so that the voice, each phrase, right, the voice is in a different spot in the stereo mix, and that again keeps your interest. You just never know where the voice is gonna come, right? And the vocal melody and the chords will start out low, and then it kind of builds up higher and higher to the big climax and the triumphant return of the main verse. You know, by the time it hits, you just kind of can't help but just put together your fist and go, yeah, right? It's just really, really awesome. Okay, just a little bit more about the production. So, like I said in the beginning, the earlier albums had a lot of sense of mystery to it, and that sense of mystery is created with a lot of reverb in the production. And Brendan O'Brien is much more of a meat and potatoes, like let the band speak for themselves kind of producer and mixer. And so he took away a lot of that reverb, and this recording sounds a lot drier. You don't hear a lot of echoes and a lot of sense of depth, which contributes to the sense of mystery, right? This one is like what you see is what you get, but what you get in return is that punchiness, right? When there's no depth, if you're not listening to it from far away, it's just really in your face. It just really hits you hard and come out, and there's nothing to hide. And I think that is definitely part of the reason why this song hits us so hard. Okay, I would like to close out by saying something about the lyrics. One of the reasons why this is such an amazing song is that the lyrics is just as deep as the music is heavy. And Ty, who actually doesn't write a lot of King's X lyrics, it's mostly Doug, wrote this lyrics that is very much about personal struggle and mental health and the darkness within kind of thing. There's a lot of conflict and a lot of self-loathing, right? And to me, this is like rock and roll at its best, because I've said in other posts before, but the music is heavy. You can't play this kind of music without being fully committed. You're all in. You have to give it your all to play this music, right? So if you're feeling low energy or mellow or anything like that, you can't play or you can't even listen to this music. It's just so full of life, and that's what's great about rock and roll, is the rock and roll is an intense expression of energy of life. To me, that is the vehicle that carries this vulnerability and fear and just trepidation and self-doubt, these kind of things that we carry in our mind. It's kind of like mind and body thing, right? In our mind, we're thinking, oh my goodness, am I still okay to be alive? I'm hurting so much. I don't really like myself, right? There's all kinds of doubting going on. But your heart still keeps beating, right? And your body keeps functioning, and you're alive. And to me, this is what rock and roll is all about, is that a vulnerability that is buoyed and carried by the energy of life. And if it wasn't about such profound and universal subject matter, I think that the impact of the song will be not quite as much, really. The reason why this sounds so heroic is because it's talking about something that many of us feel, but maybe afraid to really face it like this. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching. I hope you gained some new appreciation for this song, and if you're not familiar with King's X, by all means start with this song or this album, and you can go back or forward in their career. This is kind of in this is the beginning of their middle era of their career. And they're coming out with a new album this year in 2020 after a long hiatus, and so we're really excited. And really, anytime I get to talk about my favorite band and role model, King's X, I'm just really happy to really engage in that. And since they are known as the unsung heroes, doing my little part to sort of spread the word always gives me pleasure. Okay, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.